Vansail doesn't even know where the passengers are with the wreckage. It could be come from the floating debris. No one is sure exactly where the got crashed. So he turns to the United States to conduct it. The boxes have built-in locating devices for extinction which run on batteries and will eventually run down.
Да, насколько что тому все.
It's reported that at least 2 of the passengers died from smoke inhalation.
Да, только начал стрим.
Investigators face a disturbing realization. Even as the crew was struggling to land their plane, some of the passengers were already dead. While searching for the black boxes, investigators continue to examine the floating wreckage. Amongst the hundreds of recovered items, a partly melted graphite tennis racket offers a telltale clue about the fire. Graphite only burns at temperatures greater than 600 degrees Celsius. Investigators now know that the fire on the Helderberg was extremely hot. This discovery may explain why a fully charged extinguisher from the front of the plane is recovered with other floating wreckage. Investigators notice a melted piece of cargo netting on the outside of the extinguisher. They determine that the extinguisher is from the passenger cabin, suggesting that as the fire burned, a crew member grabbed the extinguisher and brought it to the cargo area.
A full fire extinguisher in a plane that was brought down by fire for whatever reason it wasn't discharged because the crew member couldn't access the area because of the heat, or the fact that there was melted metal on the fire extinguisher is further evidence to the intensity of the fire.
Before this accident, in the 20-year history of the 747 Combi, no one had ever died from fire or smoke.
When we heard about a fire in the Helderberg, this was the first time for a wide-body airplane. It was news, and because it was so new, and the thought was that we really couldn't have anything like that.
What could have caused how started the blaze?
Initially, the investigation, of course, focused on what was the cargo. The fire obviously had originated in the main cargo compartment, so the logical thing is to look what did the labels indicate was carried in the airplane.
Investigators learned that there were 6 pallets of cargo on board Flight 295. Using master weight balancing, Vansail's team is able to determine that 47,000 kilograms of baggage and cargo was officially on board. Investigators discover that before takeoff, a Taiwanese customs official performed a random inspection of some of the cargo. He found nothing suspicious. More than ever, investigators need to find the rest of the plane and locate the Helderberg's black boxes. But 30 days after the crash, Vansail's team gets some very bad news. There's still no signal detected from the black boxes, and they're still not certain exactly where the majority of the wreckage is. So far, the search has cost $1.5 million, and the team has been unable to locate vital evidence. The Helderberg crash is quickly becoming a test of Vansail's abilities and his resolve. The investigation reaches a standstill. Vansail has failed to discover the cause of the fire or even find the plane's wreckage. If he keeps looking, it'll cost millions more, and the chances of success are getting increasingly remote.
This wasn't just an airplane, this was a Boeing 747. the longest airplane of its type. And this was 747 of South Africa's national airlines. Hundreds of thousands of people who flew the 747 every day at that time were dependent on a satisfactory answer as to whether or not this aircraft was safe and whether or not there were any structural or design deficiencies in the airplane. So the stakes for us were quite large, and the stakes for Mr. Gonzalez, as the head of the South African investigation, were enormous.
It would have been very, very easy for the South African government to say, the water is too deep, it's too far from Mauritius, we cannot investigate this accident.
Well beneath the grey waves of the Indian Ocean, the wreckage of the Helderberg remains hidden. Now one man, Rennie van Zyl, must decide whether to spend the money needed to recover the plane's wreckage. But almost 2 months after the Helderberg slammed into the Indian Ocean, no one even knows the precise location of the main wreckage. Van Zyl decides he must try to recover what he can. Without the wreckage, we'll never know the truth.
So instead of one investigation,
They must find it. The wreckage lies somewhere very deep underwater. 61 days after the crash of the Helderberg, Van Zyl receives some intriguing news from his team. Sophisticated sonar equipment has detected a large object 4,400 meters underwater on a flat plateau. It could be the Helderberg.
And they presented me with a piece of paper with a lot of black dots of various sizes on it. And they said, that's your wreckage. And my question to them was, how do I know it's the wreckage of the 747? Maybe this is a submarine from the Second World War or something. And the response was just, Rennie, it is it, because we tell you it is the wreckage.
But no one's ever gone that deep to salvage anything, including the Titanic. Van Zyl has no choice. To find out whether the sonar images are in fact the wreckage, he must launch the most expensive part of the investigation, Operation Resolve. A remote-controlled sub called the Gemini will be sent to the ocean floor to videotape what's there. If it is the Helderberg, the Gemini will search for key items, including the black boxes. The problem is that the mini-sub must be attached to the mothership by a flexible fiber-optic cable that's almost 7 kilometers long. No cable that long has ever been built.
We needed a 20,000-foot cable. There was no existing cable, so we had to go to a cable manufacturer and get a cable designed and built.
But before the fiber-optic cable is assembled, Van Zyl launches a separate investigation into the firefighting capabilities of the Helderberg. He would discover that the very design of the combi may have doomed the flight. Investigators want to know whether the combi was properly designed to protect the passengers on South African Airways Flight 295 from fire.
The smoke should not have entered the combi's cabin.
The American team leader in the investigation, Barry Strauch, goes to Boeing's headquarters in Seattle to find out how the combi was tested for certification in fire prevention. Strauch's team learned that to comply with federal
Captain teammate behind, 42.4 seconds.
No nie raz nie no, znów się stawiłbym przed zasadą.
The carbon monoxide levels were extremely high and were fatally high. In fact, the one body, and we have to stress again, was allocated the seat really below the recirc fan inlet area. That was the highest level. I think we're talking around about 66%. That is not a survivable level at all.
By following their checklist, the crew may have fed
Yeah,
toxic
no.
gas into the passenger cabin.
And it might very well have been that most of your passengers were asphyxiated before impact.
No checklist for a 747
Oh,
combi
no.
had ever foreseen the
I see.
Hildeberg's simultaneous problems: a cargo fire problem and a cabin smoke problem.
The smoke removal checklist is predicated on the assumption that the fire has been extinguished. In that event, descending to 14,000 feet and opening the cabin door would be the appropriate thing to do. It would get the smoke out of the air
That's
and
fair.
allow people to breathe.
Gdzieś wiesz.
If the fire hasn't been extinguished, that would have the function of actually increasing the airflow to the fire and increasing the supply of oxygen to the fire. We think that's what happened in this case, but the fire had never been extinguished. In fact, the crew's attempts to make the situation better may have, in fact, made the situation worse.
Investigators begin to realize that fighting a fire in the combi's cargo area is much more difficult than previously
Symptomen
thought.
väldigt bra też.
If there was a fire in one of these pallets, it was quite likely that by the time the crew was alerted to the fire, it would be too late.
Then the cabin instantly filled up with smoke.
But Van Sale still doesn't know what caused such a fierce fire. How had the blaze started? And how had it brought the plane down? The answers are still deep under the ocean. It takes months to build the fiber optic cable that's long enough for the Gemini to reach the bottom of the sea and to modify the submarine for its mission.
We had to take the ROV, existing ROV that we had, which was designed for 6,000 feet, and we had to modify it so it would go to 20,000 feet.
Truman's team had to give the sub thicker walls to withstand the enormous pressure it would encounter and modify its cameras for the extreme depth. On September the 23rd, 1988, the Gemini begins its record-breaking journey.
We were hesitant to say that everything would work because we didn't even have time to do sea trials on this, all of this new equipment.
The cable allows technicians at the surface to manipulate the Gemini at 4,400 meters. It also carries video signals from that remarkable depth. It's the first time that by the discovery of unique new species.
Some of the stuff that we saw on the seabed was pretty mind-blowing.
Then, 1 year to the day after it disappeared, the Helderberg is found. From a depth of 4,400 meters, the submarine sends back images that could only be the wreckage of South African Airways Flight 295.
There would be lots of luggage just strewn all over the seabed. Massive structures, the wings, tail, huge parts of the cabin split open, and you could see all of the ribs and the wiring, the hydraulic piping. I mean, it was incredible just to see everything that went into a machine spread over an area of about 5-6 square miles. It was incredible.
Van Sail's expensive gamble is beginning to pay off. Descending to the Helderberg's wreckage is a triumph for him and his team. But just finding the debris isn't nearly enough. A year after the accident, Van Sail is still hoping for the improbable, the recovery of the cockpit voice recorder.
One of the major aspects we aimed at in Operation Resolve was the recovery of the CBR. We really wanted to know whether the cabin crew reported to the captain that there was an explosion or what was happening at the back.
Hundreds of hours of videotape are recorded. It's exhausting work.
If you can imagine being on a football field with a flashlight that only illuminates a square foot of the football field, and you're looking for an earring one of the football players lost during the game in the dead of night. That's similar to what it's like when we're on the seabed.
Then, at 9 o'clock one morning, something catches the eye of one of the technicians.
Go back to the second.
At long last, the black box is discovered.
That's it. That's it right there. My God, we found it. We found it.
That was a very fulfilling moment to know find what we had aimed for, we had achieved, we're getting it.
It takes a full 5 hours for the Gemini to bring the black box up from the bottom of the sea. The South African media turns the discovery into front-page news. It's now 1989, and the apartheid government is still running the country with an iron fist. Van Sail makes an unusual decision. He takes the sealed black box to Washington and opens it there.
Otherwise, I would have been accused of having covered up something or left something out or whatever. And we, the FA and the NTSB guys, all listened to this tape at the same time for the first time.
Tension in the room is high. The cockpit voice recorder should be a tape of the last 30 minutes of the flight, as the crew fought the fire. But the tape turns out to be a major frustration. After a year on the bottom of the ocean, it's difficult to understand anything.
It was the worst time of my life. Sitting in the playback room at the NTSB facilities, and you watch the ride, and there is absolutely no indication of problems on the tape. And I'm watching the clock. At about 25 minutes, I was really getting very, very anxious.
For 28 minutes, the tape reveals nothing unusual. Then everything changes.
The next minute, of course, the alarm bell goes on the CBR, and we had about a minute's worth of relevant recording on the tape before the tape stopped.
Normally, the black box records the final moments of a flight. Not this time. Instead, investigators are able to listen to the start of the accident before the recording mysteriously stops. It's not what Van Sail was hoping for, but it gives him a crucial new insight into the fire. 13 seconds after the fire alarm goes off, the plane's circuit breakers start to pop. Investigators estimate that 80 circuits were disabled. The wires to the cockpit voice recorder are destroyed only 81 seconds after the fire alarm first goes off. Conseil has not received the key evidence that he hoped for, but the fire is revealed as more violent than previously thought. The recording leaves many questions unanswered, but it does help Conseil to arrive at a personal opinion as to why the plane may have crashed.
A lot of things were happening in the cockpit, and we believe that he probably was faced to up to 80 circuit breakers popping in the cockpit at the time. May have made controlling of the aircraft extremely difficult. And the possibility then even of the airplane just gradually descending into the sea. Whether it was a controllable flight, I have my doubts.
I put myself in the cockpit on this thing and I said, I would have been terrified.
Nesie wiecie, rovno nesie.
You know, this is really technical.
With uncertain key pieces of the combi's cargo area. Therefore, reassemble to reconstruct the section of the cockpit where the fire was not but the wound in ceiling reveals severe.
Сразу. Идиот! 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 Спокойнее. Идиот! И секс мы решили. Идиот! А, ракетная система. Нет, ракетная система. Слышал, знаю. Ага. А, слышал. Шли потом этим, почему жить будет, ну, знаешь, не лучше. Ну, ладно.
The Truth and Reconciliation Commission makes a controversial conclusion. Namely, that nothing that was listed in the cargo manifest could have caused the fire.
And the Truth Commission recommended that there was something untoward about what had happened to the Helderberg.
Forza Horizon
Reconciliation Commission
Pets.
exposed the improbabilities of the government relation as to what
Forza does it best.
If nothing in the cargo inventory caused the fire, and how did it get on board?
The reality, unfortunately, is unless somebody today comes up and says, yes, I did this, or
Mas
you
substitutos,
were
então
responsible for this, and you can prove that much of
não estou a falar.
that will be approximately the only time in which we will really know what had happened in and caused was the source of the injury for fire.
In its final report, the Commission suggests that the Attorney General's office continue to investigate the accident.
But surprisingly, that's never happened. The HC-led government hasn't pursued that. And of course, we have to ask ourselves why. And I think that the answer lies in what many people believe is that it's just going to be too costly.
they don't want to, for the simple reason that it will be financially disastrous for the airline.
Rennie van Sale devoted years of his life to solving the mystery of the Helderberg. His inability to definitely prove the cause for the fire does not stop him from seeing the benefit of his investigation.
I believe that we as a team have done the best that we could under extremely challenging conditions and circumstances. What we had done had never been done before. It was pioneering work. Frustration, yes. Not established the source of ignition. And we will never know.
I believe that those people are still out there that know exactly what happened. I know that the processes at the time were our country was at war and they were doing their duty for their country. But I just feel that they should have a heart for the families and bring out that information.
Morning rush hour, Charlotte, North Carolina. It's busy.
The flames were coming over the fence, just total craziness. Everyone was just running for their lives.
Firefighters rushed to one of the airport's main hangars, where they confront an inferno.
It was quite a while before we realized a plane had hit the hangar.
A packed commuter flight has plunged to the ground shortly after takeoff. Everyone on board is killed.
We kept scratching our head wondering, okay, this airplane flew 9 times previously and we had no problems.
Investigators uncover a string of errors
Bill, I have an idea.
and learn that passengers on small planes have actually been in danger for years. It's morning on January the 8th, 2003, in Charlotte, North Carolina. A city of 500,000 wakes. At Charlotte Douglas International Airport, commercial airline pilot Captain Katie Leslie is at work early. Only 25 years old, this Texas native has been flying for Air Midwest for almost 3 years. One of the youngest flight captains at her airline. She's a top-rated pilot building her career at one of the fastest-growing airports in the United States. This airport is an important domestic hub for U.S. Airways, with flights to most major cities in the eastern United States. Midwest runs a commuter service as U.S. Airways Express. It operates a fleet of Beechcraft 1900D planes, a 19-passenger short-haul commuter plane, and a trusted workhorse in the industry. Today, Captain Leslie is in command of a 1900D on a 30-minute hop to Greenville-Spartanburg Airport in Greer, North Carolina. Her co-pilot is 27-year-old Jonathan Gibbs.
What the heck? I was asleep last night.
I had a dream I was in Miami.
Among the passengers flying to Greer this morning, 18-year-old Christiana Shepherd. Christiana's parents, Doug and Teresa, are Baptist missionaries working in the Portuguese Azores.
Christiana left the 7th of January from the Azores, spent the night in the airport in Boston, and then flew the next morning on the early flight from Boston to Charlotte to Greenville. So she was on her way back to college.
Christiana was very special, and she was one that would come up and give you a hug and say, you know, she'd come for no reason, would give you a hug and say, Dad, I love you.
At 8 in the morning, Christiana boards her flight. Meanwhile, as part of their standard checklist before takeoff, the crew calculates the weight of all the baggage, passengers, and fuel on the plane. That's to make sure the plane isn't overweight, and the weight is spread evenly. It's a calculation that's made on all commercial aircraft.
So we got a full house back there?
You don't know too many people in the back? Don't know the bags yet.
Okay.
But baggage handlers raise concerns that the luggage they're loading may be too heavy.
Captain, how many are we gonna take off? We're figuring it out. We don't think we're gonna have to take anything off.
Cool. 17,018.
17,120 is our weight, huh?
Yeah, it's our max.
So, we're cool.
So, yeah.
Good morning. Welcome aboard U.S. Airways Express service to Greenville, Spartanburg. It's a very short flight, maybe 30 minutes gate to gate, so you can back and relax. We'll have you there in a few minutes.
Before takeoff, the crew checks the flight controls, including the rudder and elevator, which help control the direction of the plane.
Flight controls, free and correct.
Air Midwest 5481, taxi into position and hold.
Captain Leslie is moments from takeoff. On the runway ahead of them is a Bombardier CRJ ready for departure.
The CRJ sure is a good-looking plane, isn't it?
Yeah. Wish I was flying.
With powerful turbulence released from the CRJ, Captain Leslie must keep a safe distance.
They're going to blast us with his jet blasts.
Air Midwest 5481, turn right, heading 230. Cleared for takeoff. Set takeoff power, please.
Power is set. 80 knots. Cross check.
At 80 knots, pilots check that key instruments are working. With no sound trouble, the plane is 5481's takeoff roll was perfectly normal.
Che chiede? Come come? Non so un palo. E te un bene.
Staggering 56 won. The crew struggled to get over the top of the wings, creates lift. But if the nose keeps rising, air won't flow smoothly over the plane's wings. The plane will lose its lift, spilling flying to the sky. The controller engine starts. Plane is now 250 meters from the ground. It stalls, rolls to the left, and begins falling to the side. Then Leslie pulls on the control column with all her might. If she can't get the plane to fly, she's got to hit the ground. Helicopter controllers watch as a 19 passenger plane plunges towards the earth.
So we're expecting rain in about 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, da, proprio di questo. Stuff.
Masters loaded with almost 1,000 kilograms of external chemical the yacht instantly ignites in that fuel. Before the exhaust 5 seconds blaze out,
Sì, this one.
there are several patterns with hundreds of people everywhere.
So I hopped in my truck and drove down to the site.
Okay, we're approaching the pit window. You're going to be on softs.
Запахнуло, а потом аж через дивизию.
Lando's in the pits. Lando in the pits.
Pits. Дела.
Okay, we're boxing this lap. Give us the best in lap you can.
Не скажу телефона, что 200, наверное, уже. Я сейчас очень ставлю. 236, по-моему. Эфира.
Rain is forecast in just over 10 minutes' time. Rain in 10 minutes.
А, дождь объяснил.
Remember, box this lap. Keep an eye on your distance to the speed limit line as you approach and make sure you don't speed.
Круг уже. А уже реально.